All right, future sport managers, welcome. Today, we are diving into something that is absolutely fundamental for your careers. We're talking about how to choose the right legal structure for any new sports business you might dream up. Think of this as your legal playbook. So let's get right into it. So, I want you to imagine this for a second. You've got it, the $1,000,000 idea. Maybe it's a new training facility, some revolutionary piece of wearable tech, or even a whole new league. It's brilliant. But before you even start thinking about a cool name or a logo, what is the absolute first, most critical decision you have to make? And the answer is deciding how to legally organize your business. Now, I know this doesn't sound as exciting as marketing or signing your first client, but believe me, this isn't just paperwork. This is the literal foundation of your entire company. It sets the rules for absolutely everything that comes after. So why does this one little choice matter so much? Well, it creates this massive ripple effect. The structure you pick is going to impact how much you pay in taxes, what happens if you get sued, your personal liability, who's actually in control, and even how long the business can legally exist. It is a huge decision to make right out of the gate. Okay, so let's start with the simplest, most common way to get in the game, deciding to go it alone. In legal terms, this is called a sole proprietorship. Now, pay attention to those key phrases: one individual and no legal existence apart from the owner. What this really means is that in the eyes of the law, you are the business and the business is you. There is absolutely no legal separation between the two. You can think of this as the default setting for a new business. In fact, if you start working as a personal trainer and just start taking payments, congratulations, you're automatically a sole proprietorship. It's so popular in sports because it's incredibly easy and cheap to get started. No lawyers, no complicated forms, you just begin. And this really shows you the big trade-off, doesn't it? On one hand, the advantages are awesome. It's easy, you have total control, and the taxes are simple. But look at that huge disadvantage on the right: unlimited liability. That means if your business gets sued or racks up debt, your personal assets, your car, your house, your savings, they're all on the line. But, what if you're not going it alone? What if you're teaming up with a co-founder? Well, that brings us to our next structure, the partnership. A partnership is basically a sole proprietorship, but for two or more people. It's a creation of contract law, but what's really interesting is that you don't even need a formal written agreement to have one. If you and a friend start acting like partners, sharing work, sharing profits, the law will say you are a partnership, whether you meant to be or not. So just like the sole proprietorship, it's easy to form and you get that simple pass-through taxation. But that liability risk, it just got a lot scarier. Now you're facing something called unlimited joint and several liability. That's a fancy way of saying you're not just responsible for your own mistakes, you are 100% responsible for your partner's business debts and actions too. This leads to a really good question. Let's say your old college roommate wants to invest in your new sports marketing agency. They're just going to give you money, but they don't want to be involved in the day-to-day stuff. Do they really have to take on that same crazy level of personal risk? And the answer is no, thankfully, because of something called a limited partnership. This structure basically creates two classes of partners. You have the general partners, who run the business and have all that unlimited liability, but then you have limited partners, usually just the investors, and their liability is limited to whatever they invested. Now here's the catch. The second that limited partner starts acting like a manager, they lose that protection. So we've looked at one structure with zero liability protection, and another that only offers it to people who stay hands-off. This problem leads us directly to the modern hybrid solution that tries to fix everything: the limited liability company, or as you probably know it, the LLC. The reason LLCs have become so incredibly popular really comes down to this simple idea. It was designed from the ground up to be the best of both worlds, taking the greatest features from the other business types and rolling them into one. So, how does it do that? What's the magic? Well, first, just like a partnership, it gives you that sweet pass-through taxation, so you avoid getting taxed twice. But second, and this is the real game changer, it gives all members the liability protection of a corporation. This means your personal assets are shielded from the business's debts and lawsuits. It's a legal firewall. And if you're sitting there wondering just how relevant this is to the world of sports, get this. Major League Soccer is structured as a single entity LLC. Each team owner is actually a member investor in the league itself. It's a perfect real-world example of just how powerful and flexible the LLC is in our industry. The advantages here are just so clear. You get the best tax structure and that critical liability shield. The disadvantages? Honestly, they're pretty minor for most new businesses. Yeah, it's a newer structure, so there's a little less legal history to go on, but for most sports ventures, the pros just overwhelmingly outweigh the cons. Okay, so we've just walked through the three main plays in the legal playbook for starting your sports business. And I want you to remember, there is no single right answer for everyone. The best choice is always going to depend on your specific situation and your goals. So let's look at a final scorecard here. Now, the most important row, the one I want you to focus on, is that first one, owner liability. As you go from left to right, from a sole proprietorship over to an LLC, you can literally see the owner's personal risk just vanish. And that protection right there is almost always the deciding factor. It's why people are willing to deal with the slightly more complex formation of an LLC. And that brings us right back to you and your future in the sports industry. As you start to build out your own big ideas, this is the foundational question you are going to have to answer for yourself. Which legal playbook are you going to choose to turn your vision into a reality?